Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hello and welcome to the Friends in Recovery Podcast. Jersey Ed here along with my two co-hosts, Buckeye Bambi and Breezy Beth today. What's that?
Hell yeah. I'm Breezy.
Breezy. Why are you Breezy?
Breezy because I give up. I'm not going to
give up.
I'm not going to. We're going in. We're just going to let it go. We're just
there you go.
Breezy.
You're going to go with the flow.
Yes.
Unstructured.
Unstructured, even though I have a shit ton to do this weekend.
That's right. Exactly. You know, Beth, it would make it easier if you just had one name like Jersey Ed or Buckeye Bambi.
Listen, Ed, if that's what you want me to do, I can be just Beth.
Well, no, I can make a suggestion. Bitchy Beth. How's that?
Dude, it's like you want me to come to South Carolina and just hit you.
And just kick my ass down here. Yeah.
I'm just gonna push you off the boat.
Beth, if I couldn't bust on you, who would I bust on? I can't bust on our Lisa, our guest, because then she'll just turn it all off and that's it.
And Bambi's the boss, so I'm the only option.
I know. And I beat myself up. Have you ever been in this head? I beat myself up way more than just calling you bitchy Beth. All right.
Oh man.
How's everybody doing? You guys doing okay today? Ladies?
Of course, you know what today is.
What is today?
Bambi's
Buckeye
holiday.
You know, the Ohio State Buckeyes play. So, all weekend.
Football weekend. So you said that on the meeting this morning. Yeah. I'm not a football guy, guys. I'm just not.
Me either.
I'm a baseball guy. You know, I don't like this football stuff. I don't know why, but I just don't. Not that I used to drink watching football at the bar all the time. That's part of it. And then when I didn't have cocaine to sit there at the bar all day, I would get pissed off and, drive around town drunk trying to find a cocaine dealer. So anyways, at least we can laugh about it today. Right, guys? So anyway,
hell yeah.
Real quick, just to want to let you know, if you want to get a hold of us, 800-989-6504 is our direct number. It's non-emergency. You can email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. See our email addresses below us. And for you can go over to our Friends in Recovery website at friendsandrecoverycommunity.org. And don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, please. Purple hearts. Bambi's going to get a purple one. Beth is going to get always a black one. Jersey Ed, of course, blue. And our guest, Lisa, will have red hearts. So please put those in the comments below. And also I'd like to just thank Carl and Chelsea at SoberPod for doing a wonderful job. And of course we have to push Carl's book because we are the only source of his sales. There it is, 366 fucking days sober. I recommend everybody to grab effing days sober. I'm sorry. Lisa's probably going to just delete this whole podcast out of her.
No,
I should have told her we curse a little bit on this show. So anyways, but yeah, please go check out SoberPod over there. Also, I want to say hello to our friend over at Dayton Strong 101 Recovery Podcast. We love you guys over there. And that is it for now. I've only got as far as that goes, but I'd like to welcome our guest who we've been talking to. And she didn't hang up yet. It's Lisa Gennosa. She's embarrassing her. She wrote this wonderful book called Incurable Hope, and we're going to find out a little bit more about that. But welcome to the show, Lisa. How are you today?
I am great. I wouldn't dare hang up. You guys are a blast. I will say it's called Incurable Hope.
Oh, Incurable. What did I say?
Incredible.
Incredible Hope.
I might change the title. Incredible Hope.
There you go. There you go.
Write a sequel.
Yeah, there you go. Write a sequel.
There it is. You can write the sequel. So Incurable Hope, later to come, Incredible Hope. I would think of like the Incredible Hulk, maybe. That's why. Yeah, I told you it's going all wrong. So anyways, Incurable Hope. So Lisa, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, a little about the book, kind of get us started with all that and we'll figure it all out as we go.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'm a physician assistant in a small town in Eastern North Carolina. My son has substance. I do refer to it as substance use disorder or addiction disorder. And I grew up. I always say, fun fact: I grew up in a home where my mom was a liquor and narcotics agent. So I kind of had this experience from law enforcement side, medical side, addiction side. My son has been in and out of rehab for about 10. He's gone about 10 times. We've been dealing with it for nearly 20 years now. But the whole point behind doing all of this, writing the book, everything that happened, I didn't know in the beginning that it would turn into what it has at all. Just wrote therapeutically, really, I think. But it became, I guess, just a goal to help other people, to help other families getting through it, to compress the timeline, because there was so much that I did for so long that was so wrong. And I wanted to give people information. There's a ton of resources in the book.
Okay.
There's a ton of explanation in the book, so that people don't, stumble over themselves forever and not help their loved one or themselves in the process. So the book is really for the families, for, their loved ones, spouses, grandparents, parents, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole thing. But it also gives our story. There's that memoir portion of it just for the connection. And so people can, we can all relate.
So identify with the story, and then there's it sounds like there's resources and all that in there. When did you write this book?
So I wrote it. I mean, it came out in March of this year, actually. March
Okay.
of April.
Okay.
And it took about 4 years to write. So, I mean, I was writing through the pandemic, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that when all the struggles came up, or is this the struggles throughout your life back to childhood, or just give us a quick kind of a snapshot of that?
Well, the struggles for my son started when he was about 12 or 13. He started using at that age. So we had no idea. For at least about 8 years, we didn't really have any concept of what was going on. And, people are always surprised. I'm a physician assistant. My husband, a family physician. So we had sort of this, kind of a boring life, but just, I don't know what the word is. There wasn't anything that would.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, nothing crazy out of the ordinary that we would expect him to be using. But I was married before, and he would go to his dad's and use at other people's houses and stuff like that. So we didn't know what was going on for the longest time. And, unfortunately, I guess fortunately now we did find out, and, he's gone through a lot, and, here we are today. There's a lot of nuances in there that we didn't know about. There's that moment in December of 2017 that kind of changed the trajectory of everything. And then several years after that, we discovered that he had been assaulted when he was in his teenage years too. So there was all those elements that came into the story.
So you said, Lisa, here we are today. Is that good or bad? Because it's good. Okay, good. Because this story can go different any time. I mean, all of us are sober on here. I don't know about you, but our story can be written at any time if we don't do what we have to do. So
yeah, I like to say though, it's great today, but it is not a fairy tale today.
Of course not.
That it's perfect, or what I mean is we have found a way to take everything, all that pain that we went through, all the trials, all that stuff, and turn it into something positive. My son too, I'm very proud of his courageousness to be able to share that story, with these conversations and in the book. He gave permission to do that. I worked with him the entire way, and he's incredibly supportive. So yeah, I'm proud of him for doing that. And here we are again, but it's never going to be a fairy tale. It's something we work on every single day.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Recovery, that's, get Bambi, were you muted?
Is there any family history of, substance use disorder? Because, we know that often, happens.
Absolutely. On his dad's side. Yeah. Pretty significant on his dad's side. So Unfortunately,
so it's definitely a family disease, as you're seeing now. I mean, obviously we kind of all know that. What did any mental illness play a role in any of this too? Because there's always something underlying that I'm always noticing when I'm talking to more and more and sponsoring more and more people. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think there was. We've kind of gone back and forth with this through and I write about some mental illness in the book as well, because there's just this uncertainty. What was, the cart or the horse? Because, he used at such a young age to mask, his insecurities and things at that time. And I don't know that he truly had depression, at 12 years of age. But if it was brewing, or if there was an underlying condition, it certainly, more than certainly was exacerbated, over those years of use, and really changed the brain chemistry to set him up for, he's dealing with depression, anxiety, and trauma now as a result of everything that happened. But I don't think at 12 it was initially because of depression. He's definitely dealing with it now.
Well, you say that at 12. First of all, when my daughter turned 12, 13, that age, when all my kids turned 12, 13, that age, I looked at them like, because I was in sobriety when all my, except for two of my kids, most of them was in sobriety for. My son turned 5. He's now 32. I'm not even 32. How's my son 32? That's crazy.
No,
anyways.
Right?
But I started drinking at 13, and I looked like when my daughter's 21 now, I still can't even understand, like, I'm going to this part, I'm going to that part, whatever it is. But at 13, when I started drinking, I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know what mental. I don't think anybody knew way back when.
Right.
I was definitely depressed because my dad wasn't home. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on a football team. I was not good. I was just worried about the home life and whatever. It really wasn't. I was a scrawny little kid. Anyways, I remember going to a football game. One of our football games. And they put me in. We were probably losing like 100-2 or something, and they put me in, right? And I made this amazing catch, and I went, whatever it was, and somebody tackled me, and that was it. And I looked up in the stands for my mom and dad, and neither one of them were there. Also happened at baseball. I was a little bit better at baseball. But my mom was always there, but my dad wasn't. And I could tell you now, looking back at age 13, I was depressed, and I needed drugs and alcohol to definitely take me out of all that. Obviously it didn't go, my addiction didn't take off hugely at 13, but I know that's when it started, and that's
mine did.
Yeah. Oh, did it? Okay.
Oh yeah, dude, I was depressed from you know what I mean? Like, I had chemical depression.
Yeah.
It runs in my family. It definitely manifested by 9, 10. And I was drinking on a daily basis by the time I was 14.
Jesus.
So, yeah.
No. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I'm sorry, say that again.
No, I was going to say, what was there any law enforcement involved? Did any, what took place to bring all this to light?
Oh yeah. Well, first he got kicked out of college at, I think, 3.5 months. So, left school, went to college, and the college said, you really need to get him some help. But on his way home from college, he got his first DUI. And even then we were still kind of like, no, this is just antics. He's got to get through this, or we'll be okay. Cause we didn't know, about the trauma that had happened or the assault. We didn't know that he had been, drinking and hiding alcohol in his room for all those years. And so, it really wasn't till a couple of years later, like I said, in 2017, I think he was around 20 or 21 at that point, where there was, an incident that just changed everything. And then we kind of started zoning in, but there was still a couple of years where I was not willing to fully grasp or accept what we were dealing with. And it, eventually the hospitalizations, the incarcerations, there's a point you can't not accept, but initially I still had some trouble with that.
I tell you what, there's people now that's going through that, and the family still don't accept it, Yes. So what was the aha moment, if there was one, or was it just little drops in a bucket that said, yeah, maybe he does have a problem. Maybe I should start looking at this a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, the aha moment was for us in 17. He was suicidal. He had a blood alcohol content of 0.43. He had hit his head and he was taken to the hospital. And there's a lot of nuances in this story, and it's in the book, but ultimately they determined he needed to go to a mental health facility because he was suicidal and, did not have a weapon on him. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody else. He just wanted to die. And again, we didn't know at that time about the assault, but he was just done. And they brought in a mental health deputy. He took it upon himself. He came in, I think he more or less escalated the situation instead of de-escalated the situation with my son. And he ended up taking him out of the hospital in handcuffs.
Oh, Jesus.
In with a rag over his face. His gown was completely open with no clothing on underneath. And they took him to jail. And then within about 12, 14 hours, they put him in solitary confinement. So he
what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane. Yeah.
It is insane.
It is. Yes.
Can we bring charges against this fucking police department?
What's up with law enforcement?
So because I called a lawyer and I said, this is against his civil rights. I mean, this is at the time. And honestly, because he didn't die, no lawyer wanted to take it on.
Shut up. What year was this?
2017.
Wow.
Stop it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I guess, we were talking a little bit earlier, or we had some questions earlier, but so you said something about law enforcement and medical staff failed to show empathy. And I guess this is probably the reason why. And I would have to second that with you. I don't want to get into a story, but a friend of mine got pulled over, was having a stroke, and they treated it like he was at DUI. And
I've seen that before.
Yeah. Put him in jail. Then they finally said, well, something's wrong. Let's take him to the hospital. But the hospital threw him on a gurney and said, okay, we think he's drinking. Never drug tested him, never breathalyzed him, zero. So you're talking hours later that he finally got some help. So I can understand that that some, not all, like Mike Miles, who started this podcast with me. He's an EAP for the Lowell Police Department up in Massachusetts. And he understands that. He was always, but what is it we need education? What's your thoughts on all that? Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy story. It
is. That's the best question too, because after this happened, after my fury, I decided that, and again, remember, my mom was a liquor narcotics agent, so I kind of had this somewhat of an understanding from her perspective, I guess. And so my son went into sobriety for about 2 years at that point. So I asked why about everything. That's why I'm in medicine, but I asked why, and I need to know why the hell this happened. And so I just started digging, and I finally just kind of came to the conclusion that the officer that came in that night, he either had to be burnt, completely burned out. He had to have compassion fatigue. He had apathy, whatever the heck was going on with him, maybe his own mental health issues. So I took that opportunity within that time my son was sober and started going in and teaching crisis intervention training myself, because I didn't want it happening to anybody else. And I talk about, the officer's mental health. I talk about their burnout, and we kind of got into all that. And I had actually hardcore liquor and narcotics agents, because they're called liquor and narcotics in Ohio, where we're originally from. But yeah.
Whoa. We'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah. But the narcotics agents would come up to me here where I live, and they'd have kind of welled up tears in their eyes and say, I need to do some self-examination. I'm not treating people well anymore.
So I actually did the same thing here in New Jersey. I watched
Good for you.
Yeah, dude, I was at a nonprofit event for substance use disorder. Like, that's the whole reason we were there. And these kids, sober kids from like a sober halfway house for adolescents, they came to see, and I'm watching this interaction between a police department that I know and work with well, and I love these guys, and a kid that's 17 and pretty tall, big guy, maybe 60, 90 days sober. And I'm watching the interaction between them, and it dawned on me. What the kid was doing was standing super straight and stiff with his hands shoved down in his jean pockets, because you and I both know that he was doing his best to stay in the moment and not be an asshole, right? Yeah. Here he is faced with police and he's doing his best in the moment. And all the police saw was a threat. This kid is clearly charged, clearly got something in his pockets, and they go on the attack. And I'm watching this go on between the two, and immediately went to every single police department in Union County. And I was like, we need to look at this. We need to start training police departments what addiction looks like. And I took a different track than you did, but it was the same exact outcome. We really need to look at how we're treating the people that we're serving so that we're not causing harm.
Absolutely. Thank God. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that too. And wow. I often say to these guys, you can't be subjected to suffering and loss. There was a quote somewhere, and I can't requote it perfectly because I'll just completely screw it up. But it essentially says that you can't, be subjected to suffering and loss on a daily basis, and all this trauma that the officers and firefighters see every day, and not expect to be affected by it. It's like walking through water and not expecting to get wet. You're going to be affected by it over time. It'll beat you down. I mean, psychologically, it's going to have an effect. And I think what happens over years and years and years of this is, officers and even medical professionals, a lot of them are empathetic. You just become hardened, and you see the same things over again. You see opioid overdoses, same person, sometimes same night, sometimes, same week, 3 times in the same week.
Same hour sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it pisses these people off. But now, and I get it from on some degree, because because I'm in medicine and I understand where that's coming from. But I really think that, the basic compassion needs to come in at that point and say, we gotta look at this a little differently. But anyway, I don't know. I'm trying. I'm trying.
So I think that's the deal, right? We see something, we say something. It's on a different level though, right? You take what you do for a living and you apply it to the problem. And being a part of the solution. And I think that most of the people that come across our path are in the same vein. So you're not alone. Like there are other people, like we talk to them often. Like I know every single one of you feel like you're out there, you're fighting like this battle on your own. Like you're trying to throw a bucket of water on a forest fire. Like I'm here to tell you, Lisa, like you are part of a pretty exclusive and awesome group of people. Like you're not alone. Like I promise you, like there's so many people, but it's people like you that are actually taking action in the solution. That's gonna at some point shift the scales.
Besides, go ahead.
Oh, I have to agree with that so much. I think it does have to shift the scales. I think that's why all these, all the work that we're all doing, the podcast, the YouTube, everything, Instagram, we're talking about it all the time. And that's what we have to do. And I will say, I just went to a conference that was for the entire state of North Carolina, put on the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for pre-arrest diversion. And what we're looking at now, and there's another program nationwide called LEAD, which is law enforcement assisted diversion. And what they are really, truly looking at is a path that redirects individuals into resources and to help and to, whether medical, psychological, social, whatever, and keeping them out of the jail system, keeping them out from being incarcerated. So I'm working on that effort, as much as I can. While I'm also treating my patients and stuff during the week, but I'm very passionate about it. And my ultimate goal is to be able to talk to medical personnel, EMS, schools, continuing medical education to help them understand it from this perspective, because there's just too much apathy still out there and too much stigma. So just working to remove that. But I agree, there are many, many folks out there working their tails off on this.
So, Lisa, it sounds like you're taking a lot of action into the community, into the schools, into the police department, to the hospitals. It sounds like you're kind of going in that direction. Can you tell us a little bit more of what community events are you doing to kind of get this going besides writing the book? Is there anything in the works that you have going on that we could look forward to?
Well, right now, I've been doing like I'll go into a physician assistant class room and have, a 2-hour lecture. We'll talk about all of these things. I've gone into work with large, like, women in law enforcement organizations, or mental health, like SAMHSA or NAMI. Those organizations that I've either written an article for or gone in and talked to, and then on the smaller scale, I'll do like community type opioid overdose talks. So there are those things that have been kind of coming through the pipeline so far. In the future, I really want to really kind of focus on continuing medical education and education for students. And so that's the direction I really think, because my book just came out, like I said, in March, April. So I'm working towards getting in there in 2024. But there's some folks that have been reaching out to me through my website and asking me to come and talk for their organizations, which is great. I'm happy to do it. Good.
And just to let everybody know that all that information will be in the show notes, their website, and where the book can be, picked up at and all that stuff. But well, first of all, I wanted to say something. I want to say that your mom and I have something in common. She's a liquor and narcotics agent. I was a liquor and narcotics agent too. I found all the narcotics and liquor and I used them all myself. So, she's not that kind. Oh, all right.
My son was using them. She was busting, but she's retired now.
Oh my God. Well, the other thing too is that, the families like the family, you're affected by it. Are you talking to the families? Are you getting out there? Like, I know you said you're doing some community stuff, but are you, so you're a nurse by trade, it sounds like, but are you out there talking to families? Are you letting the families know, like, this can be not avoided, but this could be cut short, right? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yeah. On a smaller, I'm actually a physician assistant. So we
sorry.
It's okay. No, it's totally fine. It's a common, common trade-off or whatever.
We'll have Carl cut that out.
No, it's okay. No, it's totally fine. What I want to say is that, so I see patients all day, and I work with my community's families on a much larger scale now, because people know my story. So I try to work with them on a daily basis and really give them the education and the help and the support and the assistance they need. And then I went into actually our correctional facility here and worked with a recovery program in there as well, which it's called the Sheriff's Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. So for folks that are coming off heroin, and they actually vetted these men and women in the jail and put them in a program in the jail. So, they had a whole volunteer system that comes in and works with them, and I'm part of that as well.
Wow.
As far as families go, I'm trying to expand that a little bit. I've been working a lot, just doing talks on podcasts and getting information out through news channels and stuff like that. So people because the book is so full of resources, my hope is that is what the families will utilize, as I move forward with it.
Beth, you were talking earlier before we started. You wanted to talk to her about some compassion fatigue, and we'll just shift gears a little bit and go into that, because we're gonna have to end here in a couple minutes. But I want to shift gears and go into that a little bit.
So compassion fatigue. So I think this is something that all of the first responder professions are dealing with, and they don't even know what it is. So, like, how do you bring that to the table? Like, how are you getting those DEA agents to turn around with tears in their eyes going, I've got some self-examination to do?
Yeah, I as weird as it, I guess as simple as it sounds, I coordinated with a organization called Trillium in North Carolina that's all they do is go to all of the law enforcement agencies and offer crisis intervention training. So I came in with my PowerPoint and my story and, had that conversation and explained to them what compassion fatigue was compared to burnout, and then talked about their mental health, their potential substance use disorder, those kinds of things. And we worked through it. I use my story as the start, to say, this is why I'm here. And I'm here to help you guys, address things differently when it's appropriate. I'm not completely naive to think that, all situations out there are not, there's a lot where they're confronted with very dangerous, high intensity situations where they do have to protect themselves. So I understand that, but you have to use context. And in the event where my son, in my son's case, they didn't use context. This someone that comes in at a 0.43 BAC, you're not out partying with your friends.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
No.
Yeah. I wanted to circle back to that because I know Beth had that question, but before we go on here, can you explain? I like, what you said. I explain what compassion fatigue is versus burnout. Can you do that real quick here for us, without a PowerPoint or a laser pointer? And
a little bit. I mean, just to simplify, compassion fatigue is kind of where I was using that analogy where if you think you're going to walk through water without getting wet, that's impossible. And what they sort of, when they study compassion fatigue, and this is, whatever sociology groups are studying it in the universities, they're looking at how the constant being constantly subjected to, that negative trauma, suffering, loss, gunshot wounds, car accidents, unfortunate individuals that have passed on a regular basis, it's going to have a mental effect on you. And it does kind of break down your system over time. And then ultimately and then combined with, if you have at home issues too. So you're coming in, you have marital problems or you have problems with your kids, and you're trying to deal with that, on a, however you're dealing with that mentally or whatever. And you're combining those things, you're coming to work in a state of mind that is not prepped for the best outcomes for the individuals that you're trying to help. The reason I understood that was because it happened to me. So even though I'm a family practice physician assistant, I would come to work because of what I was going through with my son, and really felt that like I did not want to take care of my patients as much anymore. One of the things you start to feel inadequate, like you didn't, you weren't meant for that job, or or you really just don't have a lot of compassion for what you're trying to deal with, because you feel like your world is so overwhelming. When somebody says, well, my finger hurts, that's what they're there for, you minimize that, because it's like, how can you bring that to me when what I'm going through is so, beyond
overwhelming.
So overwhelming. But it's not like that. I love being a PA, and I think I did an okay job with it, but at that time I didn't. And you stop training yourself, you stop educating yourself. That's that side of the compassion fatigue. Burnout is literally just, you're in a job where you just kind of feel unappreciated. You're working the 9 to 5, maybe overtime a lot, and you just haven't had a break, and you are up against the wall, and you're just feeling like, if I don't get a break, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to quit. And that's more of the burnout side.
Okay.
That compassion fatigue is a little deeper.
Yeah. Bambi is our resident nurse here, along with running the whole Friends and Recovery communities. But have you seen that, Bambi, as far as any of that goes, the compassion fatigue? And have you had it? Especially because you're in recovery. And I don't know if that ever played a part in what was going on.
Well, I mean, as a nurse, I think we've all experienced burnout at some point, especially through, look at COVID, how many people were burnt out. And when you're burnt out, you can't treat anyone with the empathy and the compassion, period, that you maybe would under other circumstances, And speaking of that, the one question I had, Lisa, was about that really is, as a family member, how do you tell family members, and how did you remember to take care of yourself instead of just focusing? It's so easy to get wrapped up. I know my husband was so wrapped up in my addiction, that my alcoholism, that he was not doing things that he needed to do for himself.
Yeah. The first thing that I recognized was, as simply put as it sounds, was I had to accept, first and foremost, what our true life was like now. I couldn't accept that for the longest time. I had this preconceived, it's supposed to look like this. It doesn't look like this. I'm not going to accept it not looking like that. But the day that I did, that turned everything around. So once you accept what you are dealing with, truly accept it with all of its, difficulties and everything involved, which it is, then you need to start prioritizing your own, both physical and mental health. So you put that as a priority, as hard as it is. You do the simple stuff like get quality sleep, good diet, get out and exercise, move, even if it's for a walk, get air, try to connect and share with as many others as you can, because the more that we talk about this, the more that we get this out there, the less that we're hiding. Like your husband or myself, I hid for 10 years. I didn't tell anybody, and I isolated just like someone with addiction, right? So it's finding those outlets. As hard as it is, you have to make that the priority every day, and ultimately find a way to turn all the pain that you're dealing with into some purpose, because it circles back to you. When you start reaching out to others, you're educating others, you're helping others, it comes back to you and your family, and by the way, to everybody else. And so it all gets better, but you feel so just stuck in some sort of mud, like you can't like cement for a long time, and you absolutely have to do the work for yourself, whether that's through therapy, go to your primary care doctor, go to a therapist, consider medication for yourself, whatever it is that you need to do for you. Because if you're not doing that for you, you're not helping that other person. You're not 100%. So you're given, say, 25% of yourself or 50% of yourself. So you're not ultimately helping anybody. You're hurting yourself and that other person in the process. Yeah.
And Harris in Facebook said that healing is asking for help, right? Basically, is let's ask for help. And as far as a PA or a nurse, or even because I worked a lot with cops and firefighters, that's not easy to do, because you're taking care of the people, right? Is that something you had trouble doing, is asking for help? Like, what do I do? How do I do it?
Yeah. Yes. And I talk to, when I go to have these discussions and these talks for law enforcement, I talk about stigma with their own mental health and the potential for that affecting their career. And they're still concerned about that. There really is. That's still something that's
very real, though. That's from top down.
It's huge. 100%. Yeah. It's huge. It's a super hot topic. Just read another article about it the other day, being that it's actually in the medical field. They came forward and talked about some burnout that they were experiencing and needed a break, and they were asked to leave the hospital as a result. And so that's not okay. That's not okay, because we've got to the point where we accept, mental health, and if we're going to accept it and we're going to treat it and we're going to take care of it, then it has to be for all. That has to include everybody.
Yeah. Lisa, I want to kind of wrap it up here, but I want to ask you, and I know we talked about how everybody can do it. Like, what are you doing this moment when you woke up to take care of you today? Not what you're doing in the past or what you plan on doing. What do you do basically on a daily basis to take care of you, not your son, not your husband, not your patients, for you? What does that look like, so we can pass that along to some of the family members out there?
Well, to start, it's actually doing what I'm doing exactly right now, having these conversations. And obviously not everybody's going to be able to go on a podcast, but for the longest time, it was writing and just getting it out of me. But it is, for me, and I really believe for all of us, it would make a difference, but it is helping others, finding that way to help somebody else, get it out of myself and put on, paying it forward, that is the most beneficial. So every day I try to do something that is going to do that. And whether that's working with the folks in the jail, or working with doing one of my talks, or working with my individual patients, or working with my son or a family member or something, that's going to help somebody else, but it ultimately helps me. It really does. Maybe a little selfish, but it's,
No, I love it. And that's exactly what, that's exactly what we're supposed to do,
Yeah.
And again, like we started the show at the beginning, my life isn't perfect. You said everything's not, it's sometimes it's upside down and sometimes it's not. And I shared this on the meeting this morning. My life does go upside down sometimes, right? But instead of being in the Titanic where you can't get it back up, I'm in a kayak. I can flip it over again and keep going. That's the difference. We can't look at, if you think you're going to read this book and you're going to listen to this podcast and your whole problems are going to go away if you do A, B, C, D, don't even buy the book, because it's not even true. That will not happen any part of your life. I don't care if it's any part of your life. It's the journey that we have to really look at, and how do we better ourselves, because practice doesn't make perfect. Better makes better. That's what I always say. Better makes better, So, Lisa, real quick, I want to have Bambi. I know she's dying to ask you Buckeyes, or you said Ohio. I mean, I see that in her eyes. So go ahead, Bambi.
Well, once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye, right? So,
yeah. Yes. I've been down here for 29 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But, I, grew up there, went to school there. I miss it a lot. I still miss it to this day, quite a bit. You do. You can't help it. It's in your blood.
That's it. That's it.
Ohio, were you from?
I'm from, where's the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Oh, Canton.
Canton. That's
wow.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the Ohio podcast, guys, live from Canton, Ohio. We have Buckeye, Bambi, and Lisa here. No, I'm just kidding. But Lisa, thank you so much. Your book is called not The Incurable Hulk. It's called Incurable Hope. Please look for that, I guess, on Amazon and search for it on the web. And all the information will be below in the show notes. Bambi will get all that in there for you guys. And please pick up the book and write a comment for her below here. And if there's somewhere that you can comment on it for Lisa, please do that, because we want this book to sell and we want it to go out there and go crazy, because it probably is already, but we want to help a little bit. So Lisa, I appreciate everything. Thank you for the wonderful information, and ladies, I'm glad we were able to do the show today. We did a little different format. We got through it. It didn't take 4 hours. And Lisa did stay the whole time. Like,
amazing.
I seen her going to push the button. She was ready. I was like, no, don't do it. And
I wasn't.
Made it. This is our first one that made it through the whole podcast, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, Lisa, thank you so much. And stay sober, everybody.
Thank you.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.